Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're talking all about one of my favorite subjects, parasites, with the go-to practitioner that is Dr. Todd Watts. So he's known as the doctor's doctor because he treats other practitioners. He really knows his stuff when it comes to chronic illness. He's actually the co-founder of my favorite supplement company, Sacro-occipital Biosciences. They also have a sister company called Microbe Formulas. And him and Dr. Jay Davidson kind of teamed up together a few years back to create this company because they were finding that other brands just weren't doing what they needed to. They weren't providing supplements that actually address the root causes of illness. And instead they were just masking over or just being kind of like allopathic medicine, prescribing a pill for a symptom rather than removing the roadblocks that could cause a nutrient depletion in the first place. Because the human body is pretty fascinating. It should be able to function optimally. So when you have a vitamin D deficiency or adrenal quote fatigue, the remedy isn't just to give you something to support those things, it's to remove the blockages that are happening in the first place. So obviously addressing the lifestyle, but then things like heavy metals, parasites, chronic viral or bacterial infections are often at the root of the problem. So for those of you who don't know, my guest today, Dr. Todd Watts, he is a national board certified chiropractic physician in Idaho, and he's also a functional wellness practitioner. His passion for helping others restore their health is helping them restore their health so that they can live their true purpose. This stems from his own health journey and struggles. This began around the age of 28 when he had Epstein Barr Virus. By the time he was 40, he struggled with arthritic pain in his hands, wrists, lower back, shoulders, along with chronic headaches, muscle tightness in his neck, shoulders and back. Remember, he was a chiropractor, so he was probably doing all of the adjustments and structural things that he needed to and was still struggling. He also struggled with food and seasonal allergies, chronic fatigue, night sweats, muscle fatigue, twitches, brain fog, and memory issues. After attending a medical conference on Lyme disease, he identified with many of the symptoms of Lyme and its co-infections. He later tested positive with a blood test for a chronic Lyme infection. On his journey with treating Lyme disease, he seemed to go through cyclical patterns of feeling good and then crashing. He met another practitioner who told him he had parasites, which was causing many of his symptoms, and as well as that cyclical pattern. Having gone through many Lyme protocols, he realized that addressing parasites was vital in overcoming the Lyme disease and the rest of his symptoms. Dr. Watts' professional and post-doctorate training includes True Cellular Healing, Chiropractic Plus Kinesiology, Applied Kinesiology, Clinical Kinesiology, Neuromodulation Techniques, Acupuncture, Bioresonance, Sacro-occipital Technique, Nutrition, Medical IVs, live cell microscopy. He's also taking courses on mastering functional blood chemistry, the thyroid, brain chemistry, the Neuroendocrine immunology of environmental triggers. I'm getting tongue-tied here because this is an amazing list of credentials and studies that he's been through. I really look up to him when it comes to the health and wellness world. And he's trained with several Lyme disease and parasitology experts. So a lot we're going to cover, and we're going to go into this in more detail. Things like how to test, if it's really worth testing for parasites, why some people are symptomatic and some people aren't, risk factors for developing parasites and the symptoms, how environmental toxins tie into this, things like mold and heavy metals, how they could actually be held or harbored by parasites in the first place, and some of his and my favorite products for helping parasite cleansing from his Cellcore or Microbe Formulas line. So lots to cover. I won't leave you waiting any longer. We recorded this a while back and he had to record on his side. So unfortunately there's no video to go along with this, this one on YouTube. So if you're listening, thank you so much again for joining in and I hope you enjoy. So hi, Dr. Watts. I've just been through your bio and read that to the listeners, and it sounds pretty similar to my story, but I'm really interested in the subject of parasites today because they seem like they were a big factor in your own health journey. So to start off with, could you tell us a little bit about parasites just overall and how they affected your health personally?
Yes, thanks for having me here with you today, Vivian. It's a pleasure. Parasites were a major part of my journey getting back to health again. So having gone through that 10 years of issues, I treated Lyme and co-infections, Epstein Barr, but I kept cycling. And when the doctor told me, Dr. Matt Buckley, he said, look, you have strongyloides, it's a threadworm, and some tapeworm and things. And this was been my beginning in the realm of parasites, because I didn't really know much about that, because none of the other doctors I've been to had ever mentioned it. So the wonderful thing is as I addressed the parasites, all of a sudden I stopped cycling. Some issues I was dealing with was chronic fatigue, brain fog, brain fatigue, and muscle fatigue. So I think there's 3 types of fatigue that I break it down to, and those are the three things. The other thing is my seasonal allergies went away. So I used to have severe seasonal allergies, and then I had headaches and food sensitivities. So with the headaches and food sensitivities, those all went away, and then just chronic pain. I had chronic wrist pain. So back at my wrist, back in here, for about 20 years, that pain was there. And with that being the case, as I cleared parasites, the chronic wrist pain went away. Wow, I didn't know there's any correlation with parasites. And then just some gut stuff, which a lot of people have, like just not great digestion and things. And then I had this little bit of a pain on the left side under my ribs. And then I had some issues in my right side and a fluttering thing, which was liver flukes probably. But as I took care of parasites, the pain that I had on my left side below my ribs for probably 10, 15 years all went away. And just, be able to have energy again was amazing, and to be able to, get my brain function better and better. And in balancing, it really helped to balance my immune system.
So I'm sure people listening now are like nodding their heads like, whoa, this sounds like me. Just symptoms all over the body, which sounds crazy. Something coming from the guts could affect your brain and your foot even, like the whole body is interconnected. But why do you feel like most conventional doctors don't acknowledge, even some functional practitioners? You mentioned parasites, maybe they've done a stool test and think, no, I've not got any parasites, I've never traveled. So why is it overlooked in so many people?
It's in their education. So they're just taught that they don't exist in the United States, maybe Europe as well. But if you cross the border into Mexico, all of a sudden you can get parasites. So be really careful. So the hygiene in the U.S. definitely with more clean water sources versus South America, Central America, Asia, the potential of getting parasites is more. But the fact is we still have exposure through our dogs, our food. It's a global society today, because, I grew up in San Diego. We had a lot of Hispanic people there, a lot of people from Mexico, Central America. I'm bilingual. I lived in South America for a couple of years, so I did get more exposure to stuff probably because of that. But at the same time, I know people that have never even left their state and they still have parasites. I think part of it goes back to immune function, toxicity within the body, and just what they're exposure to. You can get them through mosquito bites, through swimming in a lake, through walking barefoot, through being around animals. There's a whole variety of ways. So when people do the testing and it comes up negative, which is most of the time, unless it's a protozoan, then I'm like, the testing, I'm done. I don't even do it. I go through case history and I have an assessment form that goes through all the symptoms of parasites to help me gauge that. And by doing so, sure enough, every time they're negative, we treat, we give them stuff to help support the bodies to push it out and treat them. And what happens? Stuff comes out, as you well know. There's a lot of stuff that can come out, and you see parasites. I've seen all different types of parasites come out of multiple clients of mine, and it's amazing how life-changing that part is.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to share my story a little bit later on, because there's one particular miracle product that I think you brought to the US that made the biggest difference for me. So I'll definitely chat about that when we come on to supplements and herbs. But with the stool tests, even like the really amazing ones such as the GI map, that I've stopped using them as much as I used to. I used to really love them. But now, after learning a little bit more through you guys at Cellcore, I've started to maybe not do so much of the stool testing and actually saving money that way, because they're pretty expensive. And the fact that they're not showing up potential parasites. How is it that, what's the difference between the protozoans, like the bigger parasites that are found on the comprehensive stool testing, and maybe even the Western stool test that look for things like Giardia? What's the difference between those parasites versus some other ones that you're maybe talking about?
So the Giardia and amoeba and some of the other parasites are the protozoans. They're typically down there in the lower GI system, creating problems, and that's why people have diarrhea, because then there's the stool part of it. But there's a lot of parasites: the liver flukes, the lung flukes, the pancreatic flukes, the threadworms that are upper GI that aren't lower GI. There's a variety of other types of parasites that get into the lungs, and some of them get into the tissues. They just don't show up. Even Babesia, which is a protozoan, but it's a red blood cell parasite, isn't going to show up at the stool test. So interesting. I don't know. It just doesn't show up. They don't pop out and say, "Here I am," and here's an ova or a parasite view. I've had people send in full-on textbook-looking parasites, so liver flukes and roundworms, into the lab. It came back negative. So I just don't put much credence in that, other than maybe you can get an overall view of what's happening. But then there's studies that show what's in the stool, even for bacteria and parasites, is different than what's actually up in the GI system. So the body's maybe purging what it doesn't need or what it can, versus what's really up in there. So even stool tests to check your microbiome, I don't think are very well versed in science and are very accurate either. So I don't run those tests anymore. I'm running mold tests, mycotoxin, with the mycotoxin test with mold. I run environmental toxin tests, heavy metals and essential elements, blood. I run a lot of blood labs. But you have to look at, one of them isn't always right. You have to look at the conglomeration of them together to get your interpretation with case history, symptoms, and what's happening with the person.
Are there any blood markers that might indicate potential parasites?
Yes, the basophils and eosinophils. But the thing with those is you may have had them for so long that they're normalized to normal levels that are acceptable. But what I have found is I started working with these clients, all of a sudden those levels jumped up to 8, 9, 10. I've had one gal jump up to 33% of the total amount of white blood cells. Like, holy smokes, that was crazy. So it's not, you can't always just go off of that either. Mm-hmm. Because the body will get to the point where it just comes in back in homeostasis, even if it has an infection. It's just a low level infection. That's the thing with parasites, is they're not, a lot of them, they may have acute symptoms at the beginning, but then the body normalizes to it, and then they're just there creating low level issues.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier how prevalent you feel like they are. And I've heard you mention several times on like summits and podcasts that if you've got a pulse, you've got a parasite. So why is it that some people are pretty healthy and asymptomatic versus someone else who maybe ate at the same restaurant, got the same parasite, but is completely a mess health-wise?
A variety of reasons. One is their genetics on what they process and their ability to detox. Two is how toxic are they from environmental toxins versus the other person. Three, what else have they been exposed to? Somebody has been exposed to mold versus somebody that hasn't been exposed to mold, and their ability to deal with it. And there's a variety of factors that we can look at, but retroviruses, what role do they play? Because if somebody has a retrovirus, then the potential of trying to deal with these parasites is very difficult. So there's an immune relationship there. And these people I've worked with for a year or 2 years and realized in my research, like, okay, why can't we get on top of this? It's an immune dysfunction. So then the parasites or the retroviruses were creating that immune dysfunction. Or we consider mold, and mold was the problem. Or there's just a toxin load that's just too high, that doesn't allow the body to do what it needs to. And then there's the mitochondria function and its correlation that we can get into later.
So what is it that you feel comes first with viruses, for example? Is it that someone has maybe mono when they were younger, and now that suppressed their immune system and made them more likely to contract parasites, or the opposite?
Well, there's two things with viruses. Like the herpes mono is Epstein Barr is a herpes virus. So the relationship there is parasites can upregulate Th2 immune function, which then can suppress with interleukin-4. It's a cytokine that comes over to the Th1 that deals with our viruses, or deals with Lyme or the co-infections, and it suppresses that immune function over there, as well as starts the viral replication. So what I have found is people that get sick every winter, when you clear parasites, they don't get sick every winter anymore. Or if they have a chronic herpes infection like Epstein Barr, or like the things that we see on the lips. I've seen people with bad cases all the way up through the nose that had done tons of treatment for 10 years, couldn't get on top of it until we treated parasites, and all of a sudden, within 2 months, it knocked it out and had been free of them for over a couple of years. So it's interesting, that relationship with the parasites suppressing Th1, but retrovirus seems to be different, where it upregulates Th1, suppresses Th2, then the body can't deal with the parasites, so the parasites get out of control.
And am I right that the increase in Th2 is what also makes someone very allergenic and very high histamine? When you said before about seasonal allergies, I personally have mast cell activation syndrome, and I really start to believe that parasites and mold are at the root of it.
Yeah, so one of the things that upregulates is interleukin-4, interleukin-5, interleukin-13, also IgE. So your immunoglobulin, globulins, the E, IgEs increase, which make you more sensitive, more histamine reactions, more mast cell reactions. So with that, if we can clear the parasites, or as we clear the parasites, that reduces down, and then all of a sudden you can tolerate a lot more foods. You can tolerate the seasonal allergies, no longer have all this sensitivity to the environment that you shouldn't have, because everybody's really that lives there is in the same environment as you are. It's just that your internal environment is out of balance. In this case, the IgE is elevated, and then you react more sensitive to the environment, to foods.
Yeah, it makes total sense, because I never used to have any issues with food. I always joked that I had an iron stomach. I could eat anything. I had no sensitivities. I could eat gluten, drink milk every single day. I never had a problem. It wasn't until I actually worked in the US at a summer camp in Pennsylvania and got really bad food poisoning twice in a week. I was bitten by a mosquito all over my body in New York City. So potential Lyme, which is showing up on testing. And then I all of a sudden became very reactive to the healthiest food, which is the most frustrating. All I want to eat is spinach and sauerkraut and dark chocolate and avocados, and I can't.
Oh, frustrating. It's interesting. I saw a gal that got a mosquito bite, right? And there was a worm on her eyelid, and then it came down into her lip, and they pulled it out. It's just a little long roundworm.
Oh my gosh.
So the ability to get an infection, just like Lyme can be from a tick and its co-infections, but also from and other viruses, and Lyme and parasites can also come from mosquito bites. So, the IgE reaction, I used to get bit up all the time as a kid. I'm an O negative blood type. But at one point in my life, in my later 20s, when I got bit, they would turn into these huge welts, massive, massive welts. And so my body started reacting. So either I got exposed to something that the body's like, whoa, every time you get a bite, it's correlated with that, or my IgEs were just out of control. And so small things made me react more heavily. And that's where I had Epstein Barr at 28. That was the beginning of a lot of my health issues, I felt like. But and then at 40, getting Lyme and Babesia and those symptoms coming through, and then realizing parasites were like a major factor probably of all of that since I was a kid.
Yeah, so am I right that with someone who's dealing with chronic EBV or mold illness or Lyme, parasites are pretty much always at the foundation.
Exactly. And it can inhibit detoxification. So what happens is that people don't have the ability to cleanse their bowels, to move their bowels the way. Constipation is one of the symptoms, right? So they can't go to the bathroom. Well, roundworms and some of the other parasites, they do that. They release an enzyme that inhibits our peristalsis, our bowel movement going through the system, and so they can feed on the food and this stuff. And then also you get plugged up sluggish bile because of the liver flukes that get in, and the different. There's been studies showing roundworms and strongyloides that can get into the bile ducts and plug up the ability to get the bile out and the toxins out. So then people get very sensitive to the environment, to chemicals, to fats, and their not ability to process a lot of things.
Could you also talk about the bile connection, why that is so important in the whole drainage pathway, why we need to optimize that before we start killing things off?
Yeah, so before we start killing things off, what I have found in the past is people would start and then they feel bad. They get headaches, skin rashes, itchiness all over, they'd swell. And that's what we realized, okay, we need to be sure the drainage is working in the body. And that drainage process is the bowels first. The colon has to be moving the feces out. Secondly, you have to be moving the toxins out through your liver, and that's the bile. So the bile made in the liver goes to the gallbladder, then out into the intestines. It's also a major role of neutralizing stomach acid, so it affects digestion, but it also plays a role in the bacteria and stuff as well. And so in liver detoxification phase 1, we make a toxin more water soluble. Phase 2 is conjugated, and then phase 3, or the transportation phase, it exits out through the bile. And so to get healthy, to get to where we need to be, to have optimal health and hormones, then we need to be sure that that whole bile system, that whole flow is moving, so we can detox, we can clear the hormones. Because part of really the hormone process is our liver conjugates and clears hormones out. And if you're not doing that, then it becomes problematic. You become estrogen dominant, or you become testosterone dominant, or other things that can happen. So it's a very liver function. You know, our biochemistry teacher in my doctorate program said, if you don't know the answer where things occur in the body, 70% of the time it occurs in the liver. So many enzymatic reactions occur when we're not eating. All our energy comes from the liver, and when we're metabolizing things, it's the liver. So we need to have a healthy liver. We need to repair the liver. We need to have optimal function of the liver, not have a fatty liver and a slow, sluggish liver.
Yeah, that was a big mistake I was making at the start. I was just trying to push my liver without even addressing the parasites or the mold. I was doing high dose milk thistle, NAC, and my skin was terrible. I felt very histamine, like headaches, hives, rashes. And it wasn't until I first heard about it through Dr. Kelly Haldeman. I don't know if you're familiar with her work. She talks a lot about she calls it phase 2.5 detox, because we just hear about phase 1, 2, and 3. And that was like the missing puzzle piece that I needed to hear. And she's going to be on my podcast in a few months' time. But one of my favorite products and the things that has made a big difference for me is your product Tudka. And this was one that I'd never heard of. And I've been in the nutrition world for many years. And I was like, what is this Tudka? I don't even want to try and pronounce the full name. You can maybe do that for us. But what is Tudka, and how is that still beneficial for the liver, the bile? I think it does pretty much everything that you'd want it to do to work on the liver.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's tauroursodeoxycholic acid, and the Tudka is phenomenal. The research on it is incredible. We have 19 pages of research articles that show how beneficial it is to the body. I'm just surprised that it hasn't been a core element in functional medicine in the last 10 years. But we've created a very clean form, a synthetic form of it, so that we could control the dosage, as well as the cleanliness of the TUDCA. So the potency of what we've done is amazing. The key aspect of what it does is, one, it repairs the liver. So Dr. J found it because he's like, okay, who has liver issues? Well, bodybuilders do, because they're injecting steroids and all these chemicals in their body. So that's one of the main products they use to help repair the liver from steroid use. And so he's like, well, maybe chronic illness could use that. So then he started researching, and then our scientists worked on this project for about 2 years, trying to find something that was clean and non-toxic and didn't have all the impurities in it. So what we found is that not only does it repair the liver, it helps with a fatty liver, it helps create new bile, it's anti-inflammatory to the body, it helps repair the GI system or leaky gut, it helps the brain to repair. There have been studies with TUDCA and Alzheimer's and other neurological diseases. There's so many parts of the body and cells that it helps deal with viruses. It's just a phenomenal product. Even our scientists in the lab, this is one of the top 5 products I've ever made. I will be on the rest of my life because of all the benefits it has to it. So definitely helps with the hormones, the passing. It really facilitates all the phases of the liver and going through that process. And if you think about it, if you can't create the bile, or you can't move the bile through the system, then each phase is to become more toxic, and the enzymes are going to be inhibited from working. So then your phase 2 doesn't work so well, phase 1 doesn't work so well, because it's a toxic environment. And this product has been amazing with the KL support, kidney and liver support with that.
Agreed. Been a game changer for me.
The other thing with liver is what I found is, if people are having success on liver detoxification, that they have to consider that there's parasites and liver flukes in there plugging it up, and that's where we might have to go to an advanced stage, flush that stuff out. And we've created that 4-4-4 program, where we do 4 capsules of the kidney and liver, 4 capsules of the TUDCA, and 4 capsules of lymphatic support to help really get that flow of the liver moving, the bile flow, the movement of the lymphatics. And
before a coffee enema, that is powerful.
Mm-hmm. You're gonna get movement. I see people pass liver flukes just doing that, not even taking any anti-parasitics.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I do want to talk a little bit more, because I know you've got many other products for the whole parasite treatment, but I don't want to miss my question on the connection with environmental toxins. So things like glyphosates, EMFs, heavy metals, how do they tie into this parasite puzzle piece?
Well, I think part of it is it creates a dysbiosis, and it creates a terrain, per se, that the parasites thrive in. And then also they can suppress our immune function from dealing with them, as well as other infections. The glyphosate has a tremendous effect on hormone production, pregnancy issues in women, testosterone in men, and the heavy metals can, and they all have effect on the mitochondria, even the parasites. So a lot of the parasite cycles, they have a cycle within themselves called the glyoxylate cycle that can create a metabolite that suppresses our Krebs cycle function, which is part of how we make energy in our mitochondria, which then the energy for our bodies to work and function and to detox, and many enzymes require that ATP molecule, that energy production, to actually move forward and do stuff. So that's vital of dealing with all those. And then the inhibitory effect of what you were talking about inhibits many enzymes, inhibits hormones and neurotransmitters, and then energy production again. And so it's a relationship back and forth. Parasites cause issues that allow the body to have more of this stuff, and then all the toxins create a more of an environment that the parasites thrive on and affect immune function.
Yeah, and there's never just one issue, is that it's never just parasites on its own. They're like the frenemies, they all go together, they all affect, and it's like a vicious cycle. And ladies listening with hormone imbalances, if you're just trying to balance your hormones with seed cycling and DIM and maca powder, you're not actually looking at the root of the problem. I was guilty of doing this for myself for years. I came into this with PCOS and acne and hair loss as my main issue. And I could keep my symptoms under control if I was using a ton of supplement support every single month. If I was really strict with my diet and didn't deviate at all, I was pretty fine. I was functional, but I couldn't stray from that without my symptoms coming back, and that's not normal. So then I realized, oh, I actually have mold and Lyme and parasites. So now I really know that true healing is possible. You don't have to struggle with these symptoms because they're not normal.
And that's so true, especially with you're looking at the symptoms of hormones and dealing with this. The acne issues, acne is such it's several things that occur. One is liver function. Two is GI, which is parasites. So there's a major correlation Dr. Holden Clark put together with roundworms and acne. And then and then there's just the toxicity within the body, which is why we have some of the binder type products, the bioactive carbons that will help to clear the toxins that are creating the inhibition of hormones and pregnancy and whatnot. We've had a number of people just on one of our products that were able to conceive after clearing out glyphosate and these environmental toxins and metals.
Yeah, so hormone imbalances are a symptom of something deeper. They're like the tip of the iceberg. We need to look underneath at all of these major factors.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get more into the treatment. And your number one product, in my opinion, is the Mimosa pudica seed. And if I'm right, you were the one who kind of brought that to the US and probably changed so many lives as a result. But could you tell us what is so special about that product? And then I'll give you a little bit of my experience with it.
So I started working with Mimosa pudica seed about 7 years ago. And I brought it, it took me about 3.5 years to get it manufactured. I worked with it in my clinic. I had it in 3 other clinics, testing it and seeing all the different side effects or what there would be and what the benefits were. And then launched it, but just launched over 3 years ago, in a few months. And it was my first product that the company started on, just one product. And we brought it to the health market worldwide because nobody really was working with it. Some people were working with it with the Mimosa pudica plant, but not the seed specifically. It was the whole plant ground up. So it was very fine and water soluble, where this is more a fat and lipophilic and has a lot of sticky components to it. And so in working with it, it was life-changing for people. I mean, literally, I had a gal that was super sick, and she said that taking one capsule, 2 hours later, she passed something 4 feet long out of her. And so it was this, crazy. And then I had other people pass stuff like 6 feet long, and one guy with a combination of that with the Formula 1 and 2 passed 4 different tapeworms that were over 6 feet long. He lived in Brazil for
whilst listening to this.
Yes. So he lived in Brazil for a couple of years, and it just he came back to the U.S. Didn't realize he had problems, but he was having depression and energy issues, and even gaining a lot of weight. And with going through the protocol, just completely changed who he was and what he was doing, and his ability to interact with his kids and have energy again, and mountain bike and hike and stuff. But the Mimosa pudica seed itself, it's just ground up seed. There's no fillers. There's nothing else in that product that we have. And it was probably one of the biggest life-changing things for myself, but also, and Dr. Jay Davidson talks about with his Lyme patients and Lyme clients, that was a massive shift in their ability to then overcome a lot of their Lyme issues. Mm-hmm. And that's what really got me into the whole parasite realm, was the Mimosa pudica seed, and then eventually some other formulas to help with other types of parasites. But its job is to go in and help to bind and clean up the GI system, as well as it has some properties that are very microscopic, nano size, that are antibacterial, antiparasitic, and can be healthy for the body.
Yeah, so I spoke about this on Instagram because I have tried tons of parasite cleansers before, like the ones that you hear online and the regular herbs that you hear about, like black walnuts and clove. I've tried them all before. I've probably done 50 different gut protocols in my life. But within 3 days of taking the Mimosa pudica, I passed some sort of unidentifiable object. I know there's a little bit of controversy whether it's, I want to ask about this as well, whether it's an actual parasite versus is it just the Mimosa pudica kind of coming out, or is it mucoid plaque? I know that's another term, but I did have some mild cramping on the first few days. I started at half the recommended dose and worked up. And then I had some cramps and constipation, and I never really get stomach aches or constipation at all. So I'll go into a bit of the detail. I'm sure you're used to this. So I went to the bathroom and it was really hard to pass, which is again abnormal. And then I went to wipe afterwards and it was literally hanging out of my butt. Probably.
Yes, you have one of those stories.
30 centimeters. And I said, oh no. I literally said it out loud. Oh no. Because I knew that it was probably going to happen. I'd been on the Amazon reviews. I don't know if you've ever looked at the reviews on the Mimosa pudica on Amazon. There's people uploading pictures on there. So anyone listening, if you want to get an idea as to what you can expect, you can go and have a look at those if it doesn't gross you out. But yeah, I passed that, like a pretty large parasite. And then I think it was every 7 days, like something happened. And then each time it was a little bit smaller. So it's happened 3 times in total. So hopefully that's the end of it. But I'm planning on doing a good 3 months. And I know that there's a protocol that you can do around the full moon. So what is the connection with the full moon, and why do you think I'm passing them on like a cyclical basis?
It's interesting. So there's a lot of questions there. So let's start with
like
what
throwing it all at you.
So what it could be. So I've seen a lot of different pictures, thousands of pictures from people. And this is why I researched it for 3.5 years before bringing it to the general market, because I really wanted to understand what was going on and what it was. So it could be, some people, like you said, call it mucoid plaque. It could just be buildup of mucus in there. Others call it biofilm buildup. And that could be part of it. I've also seen just flat out roundworms coming out of people. And what happens is the stuff's sticky and it surrounds stuff, in a way suffocates it or binds and just helps to slide it out of the intestines. So like I said, I see people with 6-foot tapeworms, long, thin, hold it. If it was just the product, Mimosa pudica on its own, it wouldn't hold it together.
Exactly, and it would be happening all the time. Like if it was just happening constantly, then it would be the product. So I don't believe that is the case.
And you're exactly right. It would always be happening. And that's, for me, I passed something once that I had to pull out. And then another time I saw probably a small tapeworm that had come out. But it's on that tapeworm, I could see the sucker head and, different things to it. But most of the time, the stuff's surrounded by so much material that what I do know this, my first person to take the product when I started working with her could only eat 4 foods. She ate chicken and then 3 different vegetables, and that's all she had for 2 years straight because everything made her hurt and have headaches and severe pain and migraines and back pain and pelvic pain. So when she started taking this, and she was on it she's been on it for 7 years now. And she just takes 1 capsule a day, keeps her just happy. I try to take her off of it all the time. But it's just her happy thing that keeps her regular and makes sure she's okay. But at the beginning, she did a lot more than that. The amount of stuff that came out of her and the life-changing effects that it did for her was amazing. I mean, literally, I saw stuff that she pulled out that was like thick beef jerky looking, 4 feet long. I mean, her ability to eat food again was restored, ability to not have headaches every day, her pain went away, her back pain, her shooting pain into her pelvis. That product she says, saved her life and restored her life to be a happy person again, where she was depressed and anxiety and just wasn't able to be the mother that she wanted. Her kids knew her laying on the couch being sick for 10 years. And then when she started going camping with them and doing activities with them, and it's like, whoa, who's this person? His mom, she's actually participating in stuff. But she could. We helped her to that point of being able to get her life back, and her headaches gone, and her fatigue gone, and all the pain in her body gone.
And how long would that take with, like, let's say an average person versus someone with more complex and chronic issues?
So the average person could be, I look at things, 4 to 6 months. A little bit more complex, I like to do a year. I'll hit it hard. I'll hit it hard for 4 or 6 months, and then from there I do a full moon protocol. So it's only for 5 to 7 days instead of taking something every day. Other complex cases, I've seen them 2 years straight because they're so sick and they have so many other issues involved in this process. Besides just
with that client, how long did it take for her to see like some slight improvements?
Oh, improvements started happening within 60 days.
Okay.
So that's where there's symptoms that start to happen and occur right away. But there's so much chronic illness for 10 or 20 years. There's a lot of layers that we have to unwind and fix. But yeah, she's doing great and able to exercise and do everything she wants to. But the Microscopy has changed so many people's lives and protocols and doctors, their ability to get their patients through new layers and to have so much better results have occurred because of that product. And then we have the other 2 formulas, Formula 1 and 2, that were designed to also help restore the microbiome and clear parasites and yeast fungus out of the body and bacteria. Formula 2 is able to go into the liver and the lungs and clear out the parasites to push out of there, which is, when we look at the formulas, they have clove, a little bit of black walnut, thyme, sage, just a variety of different herbs, holy basil, that will help push these things out and can go systemic, especially that tincture for the lungs. I've seen people cough parasites up. I've had them because their lungs were so compromised and had so many issues because they had them in there. I've passed tapeworms and liver flukes and just all kinds of stuff with those things. People pass parasites just come out their nose, little tiny parasites. Sinuses.
I think that doesn't happen to me.
Yes. Maybe if you do a sinus rinse, get that Formula 2 and put it into a rinse and do a sinus rinse and clear those things out. So, I've seen women actually pee parasites out because, they were in the bladder, causing IC issues or chronic bladder problems. And just a whole variety of things has really helped in that process.
And I do have some practitioners who listen, so they may be more familiar with the practitioner line Cellcore. So what products would that kind of be equal to?
So Cellcore would be the pair 1 is Mimosa pudica, pair 2 is the Formula 1, pair 3 is the Formula 2.
Perfect. And I'm right that the products that you just mentioned will address hopefully all of those different types of parasites you mentioned. So the protozoum, the tapeworms, the liver flukes, strongyloides. Is that the idea? Great.
That's the idea. Correct. That's why I have a couple different formulations with that. And it's amazing the influence that parasites can have on hormones. And as you detox through the parasites and clear out toxins, then the hormone systems change for women. The skin clears up. I had women with 20 years of cystic acne on their face and hormonal acne on their face. And then finally in their early 40s, they were able to clear it up by clearing out their gut parasites.
And do you think that die-off or like a detox reaction, so a temporary worsening of acne or headaches or bloating is normal? Is that a good sign or not?
It's a sign that probably haven't opened up the detox path, the drainage pathways very well. So that's where in our step 1 and phase 1 is we really focus in on opening up the bowels, moving the bile and the drainage processes throughout the whole, the whole protocols. And that helps to reduce those. Some people may get them. And if you get them, just slow down a little bit or open up more drainage, take more drainage products, take more binders, and drink more water.
And are there any other tools that you would suggest implementing during like a parasite cleanse or trying to overcome some of these health issues like mold, Lyme, I know that you're trained in chiropractic, so would that help? Maybe some adjustments or any energy testing?
So energy testing, I do that in a clinic there. I find that very helpful for people to identify things, but not everybody tests the same. So not all the energy testers may come up like, oh, you have parasites. Most, if they don't know, then they don't usually come up with it. The acupuncture, I feel like it's really good. Chiropractic adjustments can be beneficial. Exercising actually is really important. Even if you can only exercise for a minute or two, exercising is really important. Having good positive thinking and good emotional health, spiritual health is very important in the process. I think what else? Those are
like
usually
coffee
the
enemas.
main things
I know that you're a fan of those.
Oh yeah,
yeah. How could you forget?
Coffee enemas help. Right. Coffee enemas help to purge out, really clean out the liver and help things to move along and clear out. The 444 program that we mentioned earlier can also help to move things out through the liver.
And you mentioned earlier about the full moon. That's what I'm doing currently. I know at the time of recording, there's a full moon coming up this week. So I'm already on the full moon protocol. So let's see if anything else passes. And with the emotional, go ahead.
I said the full moon protocol, the point of that is the larvae come out of the lungs and go to the intestines to mature. And so that's what there's more restlessness. Also, there's the effect of the moon and the melatonin, serotonin balances, which seem to activate parasites more. But the reason why we have the specific products in our formulas is so that we're addressing the eggs and the larvae and the adult stage of the parasites. So you're addressing all of the stages, not just the adult stage. Mm-hmm. And most medications address mostly the adult stage. The parasites, not necessarily the other stages or the other areas.
Yeah. And I have a quick question about I know it's parathyroid, but it's the liquid one in the microbe.
Formula 2?
Formula 2. That is in a base of alcohol, I understand, because of the way that the herbs are extracted. But for people like myself with histamine, mast cell issues, is there a way around that? Because I know I've taken alcohol tinctures in the past and it does cause a reaction.
So a couple of things that I've seen work is either burning off the alcohol or letting it sit out overnight and dissipate. The alcohol dissipates. The other thing is combining it into water with some of the binder. So the Metchem or the HMET binder, and there also helps to absorb that, and then people aren't reactive to it.
Okay. And ultimately it's going to help with the reactions. It's kind of like pushing through a little bit, because the fact that I am so reactive is because of parasites. So I need to get them out eventually.
Yes, that's why you're having hives, is because of the parasites.
I know.
I've had everybody I've worked with that had hives that cleared parasites, the hives are gone. Mm-hmm.
And with
there's a major correlation.
The detox process, do you ever see a huge emotional release? So how do some of these infections affect our mood and our mental health? And again, is it the emotional trauma sets you up to contract parasites and viruses, or is it that some of these things affect our liver and therefore cause irritability and depression and anxiety?
I think both. So I believe there's the both component to it. But yeah, I've had women cleanse the parasites and there's major emotional releases. And then they go and address some emotional conflict with somebody and not even taking anything, and they pass parasites because they got that stress out. I've had a woman I cried for days or for a day or two straight of just cleansing this stuff out. Which is really weird. Yes, I think it's important to not just address the internal parasites, but parasites in your life, people or other things that can be sucking your energy out. And as you do that, as you do both things, you're going to get much healthier.
Yeah, I like to call them energy vampires. We all
Yes,
have a
energy
few
vampires.
of those that need to be
Yes.
removed. And I'm interested in your approach to nutrition and diet when it comes to parasites. There's some information online that certain foods you're more likely to contract parasites from, things like sushi, raw fish, pork, and then there's so-called anti-parasitic herbs like ginger, pumpkin seeds, garlic. Do you follow any of those or give any recommendations when it comes to nutrition and diet?
Well, I don't eat sushi, raw sushi. So after taking a medical parasitology class 30 years ago, about 30 years ago.
You've been scarred for life.
I've been scarred. There's so many life cycles of parasites in fish. So I struggle with that. I mean, I'll eat if it's cooked, but I don't eat raw fish. But there's a reason why they eat either ginger or some of the other spices, and that helps to offset that. So diet-wise, it comes back down to you can take things, like you hear pumpkin seeds and garlic, spices, bitters, and spicy foods can be helpful for dealing with them when you're eating foods that may be compromised. So that's probably why down in Mexico they use all that hot sauce, habanero. Mm-hmm. That's probably really just innately amazing and smart. And Asians use a lot of spice as well in their foods, which is, I think, very intelligent.
Yeah, but that said, you could be eating like the best diet in the world. So all of these people eating organic, paleo diet, spending all the money on grass-fed beef, they might not be fully benefiting from the nutrition in there because of the parasites.
Yeah, exactly. And because they don't digest it well. So going back to the bitters, the herbs are really good for your digestive juices and absorption. And it really comes back to the microbiome. The microbiome, the bacteria in your GI system helps to create vitamins and nutrients that your body and your tissues and cells need. And with that, you got to be sure you're cleaning up the terrain and the environment for them, clearing parasites, clearing toxins, clearing heavy metals and infections that are putting byproducts out that are, toxic to the bugs, to the good microbes. So we want to be sure you can't just clear parasites. You need to be sure that you're clearing parasites, but at the same time you're detoxing and binding the toxins that are creating the improper microbiome and the inability of your immune system to work right.
And what's the goal long term? Is it to just accept that we're all going to be exposed to parasites every now and again and not just live in a bubble where we don't travel or eat out, maybe just do a parasite cleanse a couple of times a year? Or is it the goal that we should be strong enough on our own to be exposed and not get sick?
My objective is always to get people to get their immune system strong to where they don't get sick. But I think it's always good as part of that, once, twice, 3 times a year, maybe go through a full moon protocol, probably at least 3 times a year, because it's only a 7-day process, and just hit it, knock it out, keeps you healthy. You don't know what you're exposed to. So why not take some things that can help benefit your body and allow it to keep on top of its immune function instead of waiting it for slowly and little by little going through the process of getting knocked down. And you don't know these things. It's like a frog being boiled. You put it in cold water, it feels great. Turn the heat up slowly. And in time it boils. Same thing with a lot of this stuff is that it's just the slow exposure to it that creates the long-term problem.
People are used to regularly deworming their pets, so we need to get used to doing it in humans as well. And I'm definitely going to continue doing that after what I've been through with my health. All the money I've spent, I think it's worth it to just, as a maintenance plan, as an insurance policy, just to keep on top of things, because I definitely don't want to end up back where I was with my health.
Definitely. Let's have a robust, optimal immune system.
Especially with what's going on at the moment. I'll not say the word in case I get banned on the internet. So we will skip to my final few questions, Dr. Todd. First one being, for you, is there one product that you couldn't personally live without? So it could be a herb, a nutrient, one of your particular supplements from the microbe or cyclical line.
That would be a daily basis. I utilize the Mito Restore, Mito ATP, and the bioactive minerals, which is the CT minerals for the cell core side. So those just provide phenomenal health benefits at a cellular level to the mitochondria, which helps to balance the immune system, keeps my energy levels really good, and just energizes everything in the body. So it gives me some core nutrients to deal with the toxicity of the world today. Those are my key elements. And then I'm always every day taking a binder. So a bioactive carbon foundation, and then I'll mix in either the Biotox or the Metchem just every so often. But because of the exposure to chemicals, I'm always taking that. And my kids, like even my wife, in her pregnancy, I have her take the binders because I don't want the chemicals causing the disruption in the fetal growth.
Yeah, I love the binders as well. They're very different to the ones offered elsewhere because you don't have to schedule them in, like set a timer, set a reminder, take them 30 minutes or an hour. They're so convenient, and they've made the biggest difference for me struggling with mold illness. I'm excited to do my retest in a few months' time now that I'm out of the moldy environment. That's like an important step, but the binders have been amazing at even helping with brain function. These go systemically, don't they? So they can like cross the blood-brain barrier, whereas activated charcoal, it's just staying in the gut a lot of the time.
Exactly. So there's not just long chain carbons, but there's short chain and medium chain carbon molecules that go systemic, and they're highly energized. And there's polyelectrolytes that help stimulate the electrolyte function and the cell membrane function. And there's polysaccharides, so these sugars, plant sugars that come in there that help to provide energy and building blocks to the body, converting into proteins or converted into what the body needs. So there's some amino acids in there as well. And so with those minerals and the Mito, they provide high energy oxygen and hydrogen as well as the carbon, which are the building block or materials the body tissues need to repair. And the binders also provide that, and they provide nutrients to the microbiome to be healthier and to thrive. So your biotoxin binder that helps you with the mold has been life-changing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
With this, it's been groundbreaking for so many things because you can't take it with food, you can't take it with other supplements, and the energy that they help to build and provide are phenomenal.
Plus the other ones that are usually recommended are very constipating, very harsh on the system. And I find even my sensitive clients tend to tolerate the biotoxin, but it is powerful, that being said. And the formulation with the bioactive carbons is amazing. So your team has done a great job. My next question is, do you have a book recommendation or like a resource? So if people wanted to learn a little bit more, is there anything that you can share?
So probably the best resource is our website, and that's microbeformulas.com, MICROBE formulas.com. And it is full of so much information. You sign up for an account, you'll get to access to the back end where we do videos by subjects are in there. There's so many blog articles, tons of research, and even protocols to help you guys, empower you to do this on your own. If you don't have the ability to work with a practitioner, we have a live with the docs. The Dr. J and I are live every week, and really interacting with people from all over the world and answering questions about the products, about the struggles with the products and the protocols, and then we're also taking about 10 or 20 minutes to educate everyone about specific subjects that we're finding good research on that can help them.
Yeah, I love that you're making these high quality products readily accessible to just the general population, because sometimes we hear about this amazing product, but you have to be working with a practitioner, you have to kind of go through a private kind of dispensary. So that can obviously be a barrier to a lot of people, and some people, they're really struggling financially and they can't afford to work with someone. So at least you're giving them some support to get started with and providing that guidance. That's amazing.
Yep, thank you.
And final question is, what is one final piece of advice so that the listeners can take away, and just to sum everything up to end the podcast?
So the approach I when I'm working with somebody is it's a multifaceted approach. It's what you eat, it's your exercise, it's the way you think, it's your emotional health, it's your spiritual health, and then of course it's your internal health. All this together is the journey that you have to take and the attitude you have to take. Listening to something positive each day, serving other people, getting a purpose in life is very important. These products were formulated to provide energy and to support life. And so that's why people are having so much success. The only caution is that they do work, so don't overdo it. You may need to go slow depending on how sensitive you are to things. But I feel like these are the best products in the world, bar none, on how they're formulated. The science that goes into them, we're not just taking products for somebody else, the formulas, and then just putting them out there. We are creating all our own stuff. We work with, we have our own lab here. We have 5 scientists in there along. We work with a group of scientists as well in Washington, in creating things that will change the world in health. And we have some amazing new things to come in regards to brain function and a variety of other things that will help solve some of the biggest issues in today's healthcare. Yeah,
I'm so excited for all of the new products. Like every time we release something, I'm like, I need to try it, whether it's something that I'm dealing with or not. Like the new glucose optimizer on the Cellco side of things, I'm like, I need it. I don't really have any major blood sugar symptoms, but all of the products are really addressing the actual root causes of the problem. So some of the other companies out there, they're kind of just doing what the pharmaceutical companies do, just masking or applying a band-aid over the symptom, but your products are actually treating the root cause of the problem. So my favorite company by far, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you right now.
Wonderful. Well, and I love that, because I'm going to tell people, get your nutrients from your foods. Grow your own foods, right? Get the nutrients and stuff. We have products that, we have agricultural products to help have a phenomenal garden and healthy things that we help farmers with. We have a product that's launching to solve the bee population for their attrition. That'll get a really good healthy bee population, help them to grow and stuff. We have products for animals that'll be coming out as well. So the product isn't just for humans, it's across the board. It deals with the agriculture, to the insects, to animals, to humans across the board. So I feel like when you can do that, then you know that you're going to make a big impact. But also, if it's the right thing, it should help everything, not just humans. And that's why I don't say, here's my vitamin A, here's my vitamin D, here's my calcium product. It's going to go back to more of, okay, what's creating the problem in the body that we're not absorbing it from our nutrition and from our food? What's competing with it within the toxicity of the body, or what's causing the problems? What's the root issues? And as we help the root issues, then we're able to get the body to work on its own again and to recover and be healthy.
And let's hope this approach is going to be adopted by the conventional doctors at some point. And probably going to be another 100 years before anything like this is going to be mentioned in medical school. But as long as there's answers out there and people like yourself, obviously you're following your passion, and I can tell that this is like your calling in life, and you obviously went through your struggles for a reason. Same here. I believe that even though those years were like the worst ever, I can now help people, and I know this information, and I just want to shout it from the rooftops.
Wonderful.
And I'm going to include all of the links that you mentioned in the show notes. But I wanted to just say thank you so much for spending time with us today, and just all the information that you provide online, the Q&As that you do, the summits, the training seminar that I attended recently, ECO, that was phenomenal. It was amazing. And I'm like constantly going back to my notes, reading over, because there's something new that comes up every single time. So yeah, thank you so much to you and Dr. Jay Davison as well. You've been like real inspirations in my health journey, and I'm excited to continue following along and implementing all of these recommendations.
Wonderful. Thanks for having me on today, Vivian. It's been great.
Thank you so much.